Buenos días, todo el mundo. I want to start my first lesson with introducing you to some super simple greetings in español and conjugating verbs. Now let's listen to this very informal greeting. The first one I have written up here. You see it written. Now let's listen to it. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Qué hay? ¿Cómo estás tú? I want to point out this is a very informal, very familiar greeting that you would use with somebody who's your own age or somebody with whom you are already very familiar. Let's listen to it again. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Qué hay? ¿Cómo estás tú? I want to point out a couple of the conventions of written language in Spanish. I have an inverted exclamation point here. Whenever I use one at the end, I have to invert it, use it at the beginning. Same thing with question marks. We'll talk about accents in a later lesson. So what does that mean? It means hello, what's up? What's going on? How are you? Very familiar, very informal, especially this part right here. ¿Qué tal? ¿Qué hay? Okay, I'm using just the slash to separate these two phrases, which are very common and very familiar. I think these are primarily used in the Caribbean, Latin American cultures, maybe not so much in Central America. I don't think it's used in Spain at all. Again, Spanish is a very regional language. Latin America and Spain are huge. There's millions and billions of Spanish speakers, and of course, regional differences take place. It's a live language. Things change from place to place. This is a very common phraseology in the Caribbean. One more time. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Qué hay? ¿Cómo estás tú? Now let's talk about verbs and pronouns. Here I see the verb estás. That means it has been conjugated from its infinitive or unconjugated state. From the infinitive is estar. That means to be. This is one of the verbs we use in Spanish to express to be. And it's the only one we're going to talk about today. It's what I use when I'm talking about how somebody is. How you are, how I am. We use the verb estar, to be. Here I'm going to look at the conjugation chart, and I'm only giving it to you here in the singular. We'll talk about plural in another tutorial. In the singular, yo, or I, the conjugation is estoy. Yo estoy. Here I see tú. That's the pronoun I have written up here, right? Tú. How are you? In the familiar, tú means you. In the singular, informal. Here I conjugate my infinitive estar into estás. Here I have it highlighted here, estás. Now let's listen to that formal greeting. Notice I am not going to use this phrase, ¿qué tal? ¿Qué hay? I'm greeting somebody in a formal sense now. Hola, ¿cómo está usted? Hello, how are you? That's my formal greeting. See the difference in the verbs, right? Estás, está. That's because this is my formal verb conjugation for the pronoun usted, which means you, in the formal singular. Okay, another little convention on written language here. For whatever reason that I cannot tell you, it is very common to abbreviate the pronoun usted with a capital U, lowercase d, period, in written language. Don't know why, you hardly ever see it written out. It is always capital U, lowercase d, period, in written language. That means usted. That is my formal singular you. Let's hear it one more time. Hola, ¿cómo está usted? Inverted exclamation point, inverted question mark. And yeah, those verbs are different. They are conjugated to match, just like in English, subject-verb agreement, right? That's how I keep my subject-verb agreement in Spanish. I conjugate that verb. On a final note, I could take these out of there completely. I could take my pronouns out of my written and spoken language completely, because once I conjugate my verb, my pronoun is implied. I already know. If I say ¿cómo estás? I already know I'm talking about tú. If I say ¿cómo está? I already know I'm talking about usted. I don't need to put them in there at all. As a matter of fact, it would be very common to not have it in there. The only time I would include my pronoun is if I need to be very clear about to whom I am speaking. Okay, so in another tutorial, we will talk about the plural of these conjugations. Well, how do I talk when I am greeting a group of people? Am Am I familiar with that group of people, in which case I could use the vosotros? Or am I not familiar with that group of people, in which I would use the ustedes? And then, of course, it always depends on what part of Latin America I am, if I'm going to use vosotros o ustedes. So, more on that next time. Muchas gracias y hasta la próxima.